Welcome to Easy Chess Moves. Everyone under 1,500 thinks this position is fine. It's not. Because of this move. d4. And now, black is already in trouble. White immediately increases the pressure on e5, attacking it with both the knight and the pawn. Black is practically forced to react, and the most natural move here is to capture on d4. White simply recaptures with the knight, regaining the pawn and establishing strong central control. This is the critical moment, where most sub 1,500 players go wrong. Rather than developing properly, they waste time chasing pieces around the board, and they continue with another capture, removing the knight on d4. Naturally, white captures the queen. After just 5 moves, white already has a clear advantage. White controls the center completely, and both bishops have easy development. Black, on the other hand, has nothing. No central control, and no real development. So it's safe to say, white is already better. Now what should black do here? The most common move is knight to f6. It develops a piece, controls the center, and gets ready to castle. But this is where things go wrong. And it's a costly mistake, because they've already lost control of the center. White immediately plays a5. And at this level, players under 1,500 often push c5 straight away. Black believes that attacking the queen will regain the initiative, because putting pressure on the queen is far more dangerous than targeting the knight. Simply, we retreat the queen back to a3. Black continues with knight to g4, attacking the queen. So how do we respond? Queen to e4, counter-attacking the knight immediately. Black now has only 2 realistic options. Knight back to h6, or pawn to h5 to support the knight. But in practice, black usually chooses knight back to h6, and now, immediately, the bishop comes in, trading on the position. The result is clear. Black is left with a weakened kingside pawn structure. White will no longer be able to castle safely, a price that is simply too high to pay. Instead of retreating, black pushes the pawn to d5, continuing the attack on the queen. So how do we respond here? This is where many players miss a key rule. En passant, the pawn capture, in passing. And this is also a discovered check, with the queen delivering check. Black's best defense here is bishop to e6, blocking the line, but then bishop to b5, check. The queen is forced to capture on d7 to block the check, because the bishop on e6 is now pinned, and of course, black loses the queen. At this point, white is clearly winning, with a decisive advantage. Next, I will show you an important dataset from light chess. At this moment, we have 16 million games where black plays knight to d4. This is a very common move. And because of this move, white has a significantly higher win rate, 54%. Okay, now let's see how a 1,500 plus rated player would handle this position. They would play bishop to c5. With the move bishop to c5, it creates a counter problem for white. White now has to deal with the knight on d4. So the key idea to remember is this. In the opening phase, the most important principle is rapid development, and you should not be too eager to trade pieces. Black plays more intelligently now. They avoid an early knight to f6, because as we analyzed before, that can be problematic. Instead, black plays pawn to d6. This move stops a5 and opens the diagonal for the bishop to join the game. So how should white respond? Knight to c3, controlling the center. Now black develops knight to f6, because they are no longer afraid of e5. Immediately, we play bishop to g5, pinning the defending knight. At this moment, that knight loses its defensive power, and on top of that, we are preparing a fast queenside castle. We have already developed the bishop, knight, and queen early. After castling, our d-file becomes extremely strong, especially the d5 square. When black is pinned, they must immediately look for a way to break the pin. And the most logical move is bishop to a7. This both removes the pin and prepares black to castle. White castles long. Black castles kingside. Immediately, white increases the pressure with pawn to e5. Attacking the knight on f6 and also putting pressure on the pawn on d6. If they capture on d6, we recapture with the queen, and at the same time, we activate the rook, attacking the queen. Now the white queen becomes extremely active and starts creating threats against the pawn structure. Black can block with the bishop, but that leads to a very passive position. Black accepts the loss of the pawn on c7 and plays queen to e8. White captures the pawn. Black develops the bishop, trying to control the center. White plays bishop to b5. Black cannot retreat the bishop to defend, so they are forced into queen to c8, protecting the queen and effectively sacrificing the bishop. In this position, white is up a bishop, and all white pieces are extremely active. White is also threatening to capture the knight and completely break the king's position. In a position like this, white is clearly winning, and conversion becomes much easier. Subscribe if you don't want to miss the next winning idea.